My beloved child. There is a reason your spirit feels unusually restless today, a reason your heart keeps pausing in quiet moments as if it senses something just beyond what your eyes can see. Someone spoke your name today with a softness they did not expect to reveal. In the middle of an ordinary moment, perhaps while surrounded by noise, perhaps while pretending to focus on something else, your soulmate began talking about you, and what escaped their lips was not casual, it was not random. It was something beautiful, something honest, something they may not even fully understand yet. And the most extraordinary part is this: they were not trying to confess their feelings. They were simply unable to keep what lives inside them hidden any longer. Do not skip this, because what was said about you carries more meaning than you realize. It began in a moment so simple that anyone else would have missed its significance. A conversation turned toward relationships, toward trust, toward what makes someone unforgettable. And without warning, your name rose into the space between them and another person. Not forced, not planned, just natural, like the truth finally becoming too heavy to hold in silence. They described you in a way that revealed more than they intended. They spoke of your heart before your appearance. They spoke of your energy before your beauty. They spoke of the way you make people feel safe simply by being present. The way your kindness lingers in rooms after you have left, the way your spirit carries something rare in a world where so much feels temporary. And when they said those things, they went quiet for a moment afterward. Because even they heard themselves. Even they realized those were not ordinary words. There was a pause in the air after they spoke, as if reality itself stopped to let them hear the truth in their own voice. They may have laughed it off. They may have tried to change the subject. They may have looked away quickly, pretending they had said nothing important. But the person listening noticed. They noticed the tenderness in their tone. They noticed how your soulmate's eyes softened when your name was mentioned. They noticed how carefully they chose their words, as if speaking about you required gentleness. And perhaps your soulmate has tried to deny what they feel. Perhaps they have told themselves it is too soon, too complicated, too uncertain. Perhaps they have convinced themselves that what pulls them toward you is admiration, curiosity, timing, coincidence, anything except what it truly is. But feelings can only be disguised for so long before they begin to reveal themselves in the smallest cracks. A person can hide emotion from others for a while, but eventually their soul begins speaking for them. That is what happened today. Their soul spoke. And what it said was beautiful. They said there is something different about you. Something they cannot explain in normal language. Something that makes even ordinary interactions with you feel charged with meaning. They admitted, whether directly or indirectly, that your presence affects them more than they expected. That when you enter their thoughts, everything else seems to lose volume for a while. That there is a peace around you they do not find easily in others. Stay till the end. Because the deeper truth behind their words may be even more meaningful than what they actually said aloud. Because understand this carefully, people do not speak deeply about someone unless that person has reached somewhere inside them few others can touch. This was not surface-level attraction. This was not passing interest. This was the kind of admiration that forms when someone studies your soul in silence. Your soulmate has been noticing things about you they never mentioned directly. The way you remain gentle even after disappointment. The way you carry burdens quietly without needing applause. The way you try to stay strong even when your own heart is tired. The way your smile sometimes appears while your eyes are still healing. They have seen more of you than you realize, more than you intended anyone to notice. And instead of being intimidated by your depth, they are drawn to it. That is why when someone asked about the kind of person they admire, they unknowingly described you. Not in fragments. Not vaguely. Specifically. They spoke of your heart as if it were a rare place they had visited and never forgotten. And what they may not realize yet is that admiration spoken repeatedly becomes longing. Longing spoken repeatedly becomes truth. Truth spoken repeatedly becomes destiny moving closer. But here is the part you have not considered. The reason this conversation matters is not merely because they praised you. It matters because speaking love aloud changes something inside a person. The moment hidden feelings become spoken words, they stop being private thoughts and start becoming real. Tangible. Difficult to ignore. Harder to run from. Today may have been the first moment your soulmate heard their own heart clearly enough to realize what is happening to them. They may be replaying that conversation even now. They may be wondering why your name slipped out so naturally. Why their chest tightened when they described you. Why speaking about you felt strangely vulnerable. Why hearing themselves praise you made everything suddenly feel more serious. Because once a person admits, even indirectly, how much they value someone, they cannot return to pretending that person means nothing. Something shifted today. Quietly, invisibly, but undeniably. And if you have been sensing unusual energy lately, if your intuition has felt louder, if your heart has been pulled toward reflection for reasons you cannot explain, it may be because on a level beyond words, your spirit felt the moment your name was spoken with love. There is power in being cherished when you are not in the room. There is something sacred about being discussed with tenderness when there is nothing to gain from saying kind things. That is how you know the feeling is real. When no performance is required. When no impression needs to be made. When no audience must be won over. And still your name is spoken like something precious. That is what happened today. Your soulmate revealed that you are not simply on their mind. You are in their heart. And perhaps what they said most beautifully was not even their compliment, but the emotion underneath it. Because sometimes the deepest truth is not in the words themselves, but in the way they are spoken. The hesitation. The softness. The smile that appears without permission. The distant look in someone's eyes when they speak of a person who has changed them. The way their entire presence shifts when your name enters the conversation. Someone noticed that shift today. Someone saw how much you matter to them. And that may become important sooner than you think. Because once others begin noticing what someone feels, the truth becomes harder for them to keep hidden from themselves. The world often mirrors our hearts back to us through other people. Sometimes someone else notices love in us before we are brave enough to admit it. Sometimes another person's raised eyebrow, another person's knowing smile, another person quietly saying, "You really care about them, don't you?" becomes the moment everything changes. What if today was that moment for them? What if the conversation that seemed small to them was actually the beginning of their emotional awakening? What if the words they spoke about you today were the first step toward finally becoming honest about what they feel? Something important is waiting for you, but not because everything will happen instantly. Not because tomorrow brings a dramatic confession. Not because love rushes where truth is still unfolding. No, what matters is that the seed has broken through the surface now. What was hidden is beginning to emerge. What was silent has begun to speak. What was uncertain is slowly becoming clear. And you, whether you realize it or not, have become someone unforgettable in their life story. They do not admire you because you are perfect. They admire you because you are real. Because your strength does not look performative. Because your kindness does not demand recognition. Because your beauty is not merely something seen, it is something felt. Because your spirit carries warmth in a world grown cold. That is what they see. That is what they said. And perhaps for the first time, they are beginning to understand that what they feel for you is no passing emotion, no temporary fascination, no fleeting connection. It is becoming something rooted. Something steady. Something impossible to dismiss. Still, there is more you have not heard. Because after they finished speaking about you, after the compliments, after the soft admissions, after the vulnerable words slipped free, one final statement was made. A statement so quiet it may have almost gone unnoticed. But it carried more weight than everything before it. They said, "I don't know what it is about them, but they feel different." And that sentence has been echoing in their heart ever since. Because when someone says a person feels different, they are not talking about appearances. They are talking about recognition. They are talking about resonance. They are talking about the rare and unsettling moment when another soul feels strangely familiar, deeply comforting, unexpectedly significant. They are talking about the kind of connection that cannot be explained logically. The kind that arrives softly, but changes everything. And whether they are ready to call it love yet or not, whether they understand the depth of it yet or not, whether they are prepared to act on it yet or not, their heart has already begun choosing you. So if today felt ordinary to you, if nothing visible changed, if life appeared quiet and uneventful, know this. Somewhere, in a conversation you never heard, in a room you were never in a moment you never witnessed, someone spoke of you with affection they could no longer hide. Someone described your soul like it mattered. Someone let the truth slip. And now they cannot unsay it. They cannot unknow it. They cannot return to the version of themselves that had not admitted what you mean to them. Because after today, their feelings became real in a new way. And this is only the beginning. What they said next, after that conversation ended, after they were alone again, after your name remained in their thoughts long after the room had gone silent, is something you never would have expected. Later that day, when the conversation had ended and the room returned to its ordinary noise, your soulmate carried something unusual with them, a silence that did not feel empty, but full. Full of realization. Full of reflection. Full of the strange awareness that speaking about you had stirred emotions they could no longer organize neatly in their mind. They tried to move on with their day, tried to focus on other things, tried to act as though nothing significant had happened. But your name kept echoing back to them, not because someone else repeated it, but because hearing themselves speak so openly about you changed something within them. It forced them to confront a truth they had been carefully circling around for longer than they admit. And what happened next is the part no one else saw. They found themselves replaying every interaction they have had with you. Not casually, not absent-mindedly, but with the kind of intensity that only comes when someone is beginning to realize a person may matter far more than they once believed. They remembered the small details first. The way you speak when you are passionate about something. The way your expression changes when you are trying not to laugh. The way you become quiet when something touches your heart deeply. The way your presence somehow leaves behind peace even after you are gone. It all returned to them at once, as if their memory had been waiting for permission to show them what their heart had already known. And then a deeper thought entered their mind, one they may not have been ready for. What if this is more than admiration? That question lingered. Because admiration can be explained away. Attraction can be dismissed. Curiosity can be ignored. But when someone starts wondering whether what they feel is becoming something deeper, that is when the walls inside them begin to tremble. Stay with this, because what unfolded in their heart after that question is where everything becomes more personal than you realize. They began noticing how often you appear in their thoughts without invitation. How your memory enters their mind during ordinary moments. How certain songs suddenly remind them of you. How random places make them wonder if you would like them. How they catch themselves imagining conversations with you that have not happened yet. These are not the habits of someone mildly interested. These are the quiet signs of someone whose heart is attaching in ways they did not intend. And the more they became aware of it, the more impossible it was to deny. You are no longer just someone they appreciate. You have become someone they feel. That realization did not bring them instant confidence. It brought vulnerability. Because once a person understands how much someone matters to them, fear often arrives beside that truth. Fear of saying too much. Fear of misreading the connection. Fear of risking what already exists. Fear that what they feel may not be returned in the same depth. So if they seem hesitant, if they seem slower than you expect, if their actions have not yet matched the intensity of their feelings, understand that deep emotion often makes people more cautious, not less. The ones who feel the most intensely are often the ones who hesitate the longest. Not because they do not care. Because they care too much. And your soulmate is beginning to realize that losing the possibility of you would affect them more than they are comfortable admitting. That is why after speaking about you today, they did not simply move on. They withdrew into thought. They questioned themselves. They wondered when this changed. When did your smile become something they remember at night? When did your approval begin to matter more than they expected? When did hearing from you become the kind of thing that shifts their mood for hours? When did your happiness start affecting theirs? These questions are not asked by someone untouched. These are the questions of a heart quietly falling. And perhaps what shook them most was not just realizing they care for you, but realizing how naturally it happened. There was no dramatic moment. No obvious turning point. No instant thunderbolt. Just 1,000 small moments. Your kindness, your energy, your depth, your presence, building into something they suddenly cannot ignore. That is often how the deepest connections form, not with noise, but with accumulation. Not through one grand event, but through many subtle moments that slowly make one soul feel at home in another's presence. That is what you became to them. A place that feels like peace. A presence that feels like home. And once someone begins associating your presence with peace, Your absence starts being felt more deeply too. They miss you in ways they do not always admit. They notice when communication slows. They notice when your energy feels distant. They notice when something feels different between you. Even when they remain silent about it. Because when someone has begun to love in quiet ways, they become deeply aware of the smallest emotional shifts. And today's conversation made that impossible for them to keep pretending otherwise. It forced them to recognize that your impact on them is no longer casual. You have moved beyond the category of interesting. Beyond special. Beyond important. You are becoming irreplaceable in their heart. But here is the part that may move you most. After all the reflection, after all the memories replayed, after all the quiet emotional unraveling they experienced, they smiled. A soft, private smile. Because beneath the fear, beneath the uncertainty, beneath the vulnerability of realizing how much they care, there was joy. Joy in knowing someone like you exists. Joy in realizing their heart had found someone worth feeling this deeply for. Joy in understanding that in a world full of temporary encounters, they may have crossed paths with someone rare. And that joy changed the way they looked at your connection. No longer as something to casually wonder about, but as something meaningful. Something worth protecting. Something worth understanding. Something worth moving toward, when the time is right. Do not underestimate what it means when a person begins to speak beautifully about you in public and think tenderly of you in private. That combination is powerful. It means their admiration is not performative. It means what they feel is consistent. It means you are not simply someone they praise in conversation, you are someone who occupies sacred space in their inner world. And whether you can see it yet or not, they are beginning to imagine what life could look like with you more present in it. That thought is new for them. It is fragile. Still forming. But it is there. They are wondering what deeper conversations with you might feel like. What shared quiet moments would feel like. What it would mean to stop holding back. What might happen if they allowed this connection to unfold fully. And that is why something beautiful is beginning. Not because everything has already happened, but because their heart has crossed a threshold it cannot uncross. They know now. They know you matter. They know you affect them. They know what they feel is real. And soon, very soon, the way they interact with you may begin to reflect that realization. Perhaps in subtle ways first. Longer eye contact. More intentional attention. More curiosity about your life. More nervousness around you than before. More softness in their voice. More effort in the way they show up. Because once someone's heart admits its truth, even before words are spoken, behavior begins to change. Watch carefully. The signs will not be loud. But they will be honest. Because people reveal what they feel long before they confess it. And the next time they look at you, the next time your name appears on their screen, the next time they hear your voice or stand near your presence, they will not be seeing you the way they once did. They will be seeing you as the person whose name changed something inside them the moment they spoke it aloud. As the person who made their guarded heart soften. As the person who quietly became the most beautiful part of their thoughts. And what they whispered to themselves later that night, when no one else was there, when honesty finally outweighed hesitation, was even more vulnerable than what they said in that earlier conversation. Because alone with their thoughts, with your memory still lingering in their chest, they admitted something they have not dared say openly yet. Something that may explain why their energy toward you is about to shift in a way you cannot ignore. Alone in that quiet moment, with no one around to interrupt the truth, your soulmate finally let the thought rise fully to the surface, and for the first time, they stopped resisting it. They looked inward and admitted what their heart had been building toward for longer than they realized: they are falling for you. Not in the shallow way people use that phrase carelessly. Not in the fleeting way attraction arrives and disappears, but in the deeper, quieter way that changes how a person sees their future. The kind of feeling that makes someone pause and wonder how one's soul came to matter this much. And once that realization settled over them, they did not feel panic. They felt awe. Because some part of them understood that what is happening between you is not ordinary. They sat with that truth longer than they expected. They let it move through them. They stopped trying to rename it as admiration. Stopped trying to reduce it to curiosity. Stopped pretending you were simply special in a vague, harmless way. No, they saw clearly now that your presence has become emotionally significant to them. You have become the person they compare everyone else to without meaning to. The person whose energy lingers in their mind after everyone else has faded into the background. The person who somehow feels both exciting and peaceful at the same time. Rare, magnetic, and strangely familiar. Don't skip this, because once someone reaches this level of clarity, their heart begins preparing for action. That does not mean everything happens overnight. Real feelings often make people slower, more thoughtful, more intentional. But the internal shift has already happened. Before, they were uncertain of what this connection meant. Now they are wondering what to do about it. That is a completely different place to be emotionally. They are no longer asking themselves, "Do I feel something?" They are asking, "What happens if I lose the chance to tell them?" And that question carries weight. Because suddenly they are aware that some opportunities do not return twice. They know connections like this are rare. They know people who make the heart feel calm and alive at the same time do not appear often. They know what they feel for you is not something easily replaced. And with that awareness comes urgency. Not reckless urgency, but the quiet realization that eventually, silence becomes its own form of loss. So now your soulmate is standing at the edge of a decision. A decision between protecting themselves, or opening themselves. Between staying comfortable, or becoming honest. Between keeping their feelings private, or allowing you to see what has been growing in their heart. And what is making that decision harder is this: they do not merely want your attention. They want your heart. They want what is real. They want sincerity, not temporary excitement. They want something that carries depth. Which means if they come toward you, it will not be careless. It will not be empty charm. It will come from a place of meaning. That is why their next move may feel more deliberate than dramatic. They may begin trying to understand you more deeply. Asking questions they never asked before. Listening more carefully when you speak. Remembering details you did not expect anyone to remember. Creating reasons to be near you. Finding subtle ways to let you feel their presence more often. Because when someone falls sincerely, they stop interacting casually. Their attention becomes intentional. And whether they realize it consciously or not, they are beginning to treat you like someone they do not want to lose. That is the beauty of what happened today. A simple conversation became a mirror. It showed them what was already true. It revealed that their affection for you is no longer hidden safely in the background, it has moved to the center of their emotional world. You matter to them now in ways that influence their decisions, their thoughts, their mood, their hopes. They are imagining possibilities they never let themselves imagine before. What if you feel it too? What if this connection is mutual? What if the bond they sense is not one-sided, but shared? What if all the moments that felt charged between you, all the glances, pauses, strange timing, unexplained emotional pull, were signs that both hearts have been moving toward the same realization from opposite directions? That possibility has entered their mind. And it has changed everything. Because hope is a powerful force when it enters the heart of someone already in love. It makes them braver. It makes them more willing to risk vulnerability. It makes them believe that perhaps what they feel is not something to suppress, but something to pursue. Still, even in this awakening, there remains tenderness in their hesitation. They want to approach this carefully because they understand your value. They do not want to mishandle what they feel. They do not want to rush something meaningful and damage it before it has room to unfold. So if their movement seems gradual, if their affection appears in layers rather than sudden declarations, it is because what they feel for you is serious enough to make them patient. And patience, when rooted in sincerity, is not distance. It is care. It is reverence for something precious. It is the understanding that beautiful things are not forced, they are nurtured. So while you may not yet hear the full confession from their lips, understand that in their private world, the confession has already happened. Their heart has already spoken. Their soul has already chosen. Their inner truth has already made its decision. You are the one they think about when the day quiets down. You are the one they replay conversations with. You are the one they hope notices the little changes in them. You are the one whose presence brightens ordinary moments in ways they can no longer dismiss. And perhaps most moving of all, you are the one they now pray they do not misunderstand. Because when feelings become this deep, a person begins hoping, not casually, but sincerely, that the connection is real on both sides. That hope has made them more emotionally transparent than ever before. Soon, whether through words or actions, you will begin seeing the truth more clearly. Because hearts can only hide so much before love starts leaking through every small detail. Through the softness in their gaze. Through the way their mood shifts around you. Through how attentively they listen. Through the nervousness they cannot fully conceal. Through the strange tenderness in simple moments. And when that happens, when you start noticing the shift, remember this. It did not begin with some dramatic confession. It began with your name being spoken in a conversation you never heard. It began with someone describing you in a way that revealed their heart before they intended. It began with beauty slipping out before fear could stop it. And from that moment on, nothing inside them remained the same. Because after today, they no longer merely admire you. They no longer simply think highly of you. They no longer wonder whether you matter. They know. They know your soul has touched theirs. They know your presence has changed them. They know what they feel is becoming love. And the beautiful thing they said about you today was only the beginning. Because the words they spoke to others were gentle. But the words they are preparing to speak to you one day will come from a heart that has already chosen you in silence.